Alone at midnight, how a poor nurse's blind date with a lonely CO turned into a brutal twist. The clock struck 12, shattering the silence of the empty diner like glass. The flickering neon sign cast eerie shadows on the walls, illuminating a haunting scene, a lonely table set for two, but only one chair was occupied. Amanda, a dedicated nurse with a heart as big as the moon, fidgeted nervously, her fingers tracing the edge of the cracked vinyl seat. She had answered an ad. CO seeks a kind soul for a night of connection. And now she sat alone, the tension palpable. The place smelled of burnt coffee and regret, as though the universe itself was holding its breath, waiting for something extraordinary or catastrophic to unfold. Just then, the door swung open with a creak that echoed like a warning bell. In walked Jack, a tall figure cloaked in mystery. He wore a tailored suit that hinted at wealth, but his eyes were stormy, swirling with secrets that fled from view. As he approached, Amanda's heart raced. There was something about him, a magnetic pull she couldn't resist, even as primal instinct whispered warnings. She felt a lump in her throat, an unshakable chill down her spine. What had she gotten herself into? As he sat down, the world outside faded into a murmur, like a distant storm threatening to break. Pushing through the initial pleasantries, they exchanged stories, each word like a spark thrown onto kindling. But with every laugh, Amanda couldn't ignore the strange details he relayed. I once had a goldfish that could predict the future. He chuckled, eyes glinting oddly. She shuddered, wondering whether this was a joke or a masked confession. Then he leaned closer, his voice dropping to a gravelly whisper. You know, the city is filled with shadows. Shadows that hide things. As Amanda's heart raced, she felt the air thicken. Was he serious? Her mind raced. The late-night workers outside seemed to blur, their faces distorted against the bright lights of the diner. The strange words hung between them like an unfinished sentence, leaving her breathless with anticipation. Before we continue, I need to tell you something important that's happening. YouTube has been making changes to their system and many people are missing notifications from channels they follow. If you're enjoying the content, click the bell and select all notifications so you don't miss future videos. And if you can leave a like, it really helps me with reach. Seriously, it makes a difference. Oh, tell me in the comments where you're watching from. I'm always curious to know who's on the other side of the screen. Now let's continue. But just as her curiosity piqued, everything changed in an instant. Outside, the blaring sirens pierced the night, sending a jolt through the diner. Jack's expression shifted, darkening with urgency and fear. He shot up from the table, eyes wide. You need to leave now. There's something you don't know. His voice was frantic, almost desperate. Amanda felt her heart drop into her stomach as she hesitated, the swirling shadows outside growing darker, threatening to consume everything. What did he mean? What didn't she know? The weight of his words hung heavy in the air, leaving Amanda teetering on the edge of the unknown. The diner felt like a trap, the walls closing in. She shivered, but the danger in his voice ignited a flame of determination. Who was this man standing before her? And what was waiting in the night? Amanda's pulse raced like a runaway train, caught between panic and curiosity. Jack's eyes were wide, filled with a mix of urgency and fear, drawing her closer to a chasm of uncertainty. She could see the tension in his jaw, muscles taut as he scanned the diner's dim corners, his body coiled like a spring ready to snap. Her instincts screamed at her to run, yet a deeper part of her yearned to unravel the mystery that enveloped him. Why? She managed to whisper, her voice barely escaping her quivering lips. Jack leaned closer, the familiar scent of cologne mingling with the stale diner air. You just have to trust me, he urged, desperation lacing his tone. There's a reason I'm here and a reason people are after me. Amanda's breath caught in her throat. What did he mean by people? A sudden clap of thunder echoed outside, amplifying the tension. She peered out the window, rain now lashing against the glass, distorting streetlights into ghostly halos. Sirens wailed in the distance, a relentless reminder of something sinister approaching. Suddenly, Jack's expression shifted again, as if he heard something beyond the storm. We need to leave, now. he insisted, grabbing her wrist with surprising force, yanking her to her feet. The diner around them spun into a blur, the scattered patrons oblivious to their impending peril. As they burst through the diner doors, a chill swept over them. The night sky crackled with energy, a prelude to the chaos that lay ahead. Jack tugged her toward the alley, his grip unyielding. She could barely keep pace, her legs faltering under the weight of apprehension. "Hold on tight," he instructed, eyes darting back to the diner. "What's going on?" Amanda gasped, outrage pulsing through her. "You're not telling me anything." "There's no time," Jack replied, urgency etched in every feature. "I didn't want you to get pulled into this, but it's too late. Just trust me." Just as they rounded the corner, a black SUV screeched to a halt at the opposite end of the alley. A tall figure with a menacing aura stepped out, his face shadowed by the streetlights, but unmistakably hostile. "Jack!" the man shouted, his voice like gravel, deep and menacing. "You can't run forever. Give it up." Amanda felt her stomach drop. Reality slammed into her. Like a freight train, she was caught in some dangerous game she didn't understand. Jack's jaw tightened, and for a moment she could see the flicker of panic masked by raw determination. He turned to her, eyes blazing. "We need to go, right now." Amanda's instincts kicked in. She felt the adrenaline surge through her, a clarity emerging from the chaos. "What's happening? Who are you?" She squeezed her eyes shut, desperate for answers. But Jack just shook his head, cutting her off. "Later, I swear. But you have to stay with me." As they sprinted down the alley, a bullet whizzed past, narrowly missing Jack's shoulder, a sharp crack echoing behind them. Amanda froze for a split second, her heart slamming against her ribcage. "Move!" Jack shouted, urgency lacing his words. His grip remained firm, pulling her back into motion as their footsteps thundered against the pavement. As they dodged and weaved down the narrow alley, all Amanda could think was how quickly she had stepped into a nightmare. The sounds of the city, once comforting, felt like a cacophony of impending doom. Jack glanced back at her, panting, urgency still painting his face. "You're stronger than you think." But she didn't feel strong, she felt terrified. Was she really ready to plunge into whatever darkness Jack was leading her to? What lay beyond the shadows that loomed closer with every heartbeat? With sirens growing closer, a surge of adrenaline pushed Amanda forward. They reached a dead end where a rusty fire escape dangled precariously above. Jack turned to her, wild-eyed. "This way." Before she could respond, he hoisted her up, adrenaline fueling his strength. She found herself scrambling up the metal ladder, her heart racing with fear and confusion. What was she diving into? What awaited them at the top? Just as they reached the roof, she heard the unmistakable sound of footsteps closing in, a heavy shuffling that sent a chill through her core. "No! They're here!" Jack said, urgency flooding his voice. Palms sweating and chest tightening, Amanda turned. Should they hide? Fight? The reality of their situation threatened to crash in. But who are they running from? And would they ever escape? The roof was slick with rain, each drop mingling with Amanda's racing thoughts. Jack's face was a mask of determination, and she could see his nostrils flaring, drinking in the air for any sign of danger. The footsteps grew louder, echoing in her mind like a countdown to disaster. She pivoted, her heart thudding as she peered over the edge, trying to gauge their options. "Do you see them?" Jack's voice dragged her back to reality. "No. But they're coming." She fired back, panic quickening her breath. "What do we do?" Jack cursed softly, scanning the rooftop frantically. "We need a way down. There's gotta be something." Then, out of the corner of her eye, Amanda spotted a low ridge of the adjacent building. "There! We can jump!" she shouted, hope igniting her voice. Without waiting for a response, she rushed to the edge, adrenaline surging through her veins. She turned and saw Jack hesitating, a flicker of doubt crossing his face. "What if we miss?" "We won tea," she replied fiercely, the edge of desperation sharpening her resolve. She took a deep breath, her heart hammering. I can't stay here, Jack. We have to move. Now. With a nod, Jack stepped forward, his own fear mingling with determination. Okay. On 3. 1, 2, 3. They leaped, arms flailing and feet scrambling as they landed clumsily on the neighboring roof. The impact jolted Amanda, but adrenaline kept her moving. Let us go, Jack urged, thrusting her forward as they sprinted across the slick surface. Rain slapped against them, mingling with their heavy breathing. Suddenly, a violent crack echoed behind them, a gunshot. Go, go, go! Jack roared, his urgency pushing her beyond what she thought she could handle. Amanda's mind raced. They were now fugitives, bound together by sheer survival. The prospect terrified her, yet a vitriolic mix of thrills surged through her. She found herself glancing back, catching a glimpse of a dark silhouette against the rain-soaked alleyway below. If they stayed together, they had a chance. As they dashed around a corner, Jack's foot slipped, and he stumbled, barely catching himself on a ledge. Shit! Keep moving! He snapped, the tension in his voice tightening the knot in her stomach. They reached another treacherous drop leading to another building. Jack paused, assessing the drop. It's too far, he muttered, his brow furrowed. Look! Amanda pointed to a narrow section along the wall. Can we climb down? We'll have to get creative, Jack said, already sizing up the space with determination. Amanda felt the creeping sense of dread in her chest. They were still being hunted. She could almost feel the hunter's eyes locked on them. Jack climbed onto a ledge, his fingers grasping the uneven bricks for stability. Here. I'll help you down. He reached out, and she took his hand, a surge of electricity passing between them. It was a connection forged in panic, a fleeting moment of trust. As they began to descend, thunder rumbled overhead, and for a brief moment, it felt as if the world paused. Would they even make it to the ground safely? Suddenly, a floodlight pierced through the chaos, sweeping across the rooftop. They froze, caught in its blinding light. A voice boomed from below, harsh and commanding. Jack! It's over! Time stopped. Amanda's heart sank. Jack's grip on her tightened, and she felt the warmth of his hand solid and alive in the chaos. We can't stop now, he hissed, pulling her with him over the ledge. They scrambled down, desperation pushing them into the darkness beyond the beam of light. The echoing footsteps behind them grew closer, but just as they reached the last ledge, a crash erupted, reverberating through the night, followed by shouts chaotic and frantic. Jack! Amanda gasped, fear wrapping around her like a vine. What if they catch us? They want tea! Jack shouted, urgency blazing in his eyes. We need to split up. Just for a moment, it confused them. Are you crazy? Amanda exclaimed, panic rising. We can't separate. It's the only way we can find safety. She hesitated, breath hitching as their eyes locked. Did she trust him enough to do it? Just then, the unmistakable sound of footsteps grew louder, edging closer. Now! Jack snapped, then turned and dashed away into the shadows. Amanda's breath caught in her throat again. Torn between fear and an urgent need to follow him, she made a split decision. She whispered a silent prayer and plunged into the darkness, her heart pounding. Would running into the unknown bring them freedom or fatality? And would she find Jack again, or was this their final parting? The rain poured down in sheets, transforming the world into a blur of gray and shadows. Amanda stumbled into the alley, breathless and disoriented. The adrenaline coursing through her felt like fire, igniting every nerve ending. She could barely hear the distant shouts and crashing footsteps of their pursuers over the thunderstorm thundering above. She pushed forward, body moving instinctively, eyes straining through the dimness to spot any sign of Jack. The air was thick with tension, each second feeling like an eternity. Was he safe? Had he made it? A sudden noise made her freeze. A scuffle echoed from the other end of the alley, men's voices, low and mocking. Her heart raced as she pressed her back against the cold, wet bricks, hoping to go unnoticed. Where do they go? One voice growled. They can have disappeared. Check the buildings, Another barked. Split up. I want them found now. Panic squeezed her chest as she mentally willed Jack to be safe. The instinct to run surged within her, but she couldn't abandon him. What if he'd been caught? The weight of the unknown pressed down, heavy and suffocating. Quietly, she inched toward a door partially hidden in shadows. It might offer some temporary refuge. She grasped the handle. It turned easily, thank goodness, and slipped inside, the darkness enveloping her. The air inside was stale and carried the scent of mildew. She held her breath, every sound magnified in the silence. Her pulse thundered in her ears as she leaned against the door to catch a moment of reprieve. Just as she began to breathe deeper, footfalls echoed outside. She urgently scanned the room. It was a bare supply closet, boxes stacked haphazardly with cleaning supplies scattered around. The voices outside faded in and out, growing frenzied. Don't let them get away. Amanda pressed herself against the wall, praying they wouldn't choose this door. She bit her lip to silence a gasp as she realized how vulnerable she was. Minutes felt like hours, and the sound of footsteps passed, then rewound like a faulty tape hurrying from one end of the alley to the other. Amanda could tell they were getting far too close. Then, a new sound pierced the air, a louder, more commanding voice. They can't be far. Think. Jack and whoever that girl is, they're scared, they'll make mistakes. Her heart sank. They knew not just Jack's name, but hers too. The fear coiled tighter around her. She strained to hear, desperate for any glimmer of hope. A crash nearby made her jump, wrenching her from her thoughts. They were smashing down doors, searching every hiding spot. Her breath quickened. She needed to find an escape plan fast. In the corner of the closet, a narrow window betrayed the room's secrets. She quickly assessed her options. She climbed atop a stack of boxes, trying to reach it. It was high and tight, but a small light flickered through the grime, illuminating the cobwebs like a warning. With trembling hands, she pulled herself higher, her heart racing. Just as she managed to grasp the edge of the frame, she heard the door swing open behind her. Check here! A shadow filled the doorframe, and for a split second, their eyes met. Amanda's stomach plummeted at the realization that they were right there. She lunged, wriggling through the window just as a shout rang out. There she is! Panic surged as she landed hard on the gravel outside, pain shooting through her legs. She grimaced but barely had a moment to recover. Scrambling to her feet, Amanda took off down the narrow alley where the light trickled through the rain-soaked sky. The cold air bit at her skin, but there was no time to feel anything but the burn of urgency. She had to keep moving, keep running away from them and toward Jack, wherever he was. But just ahead, a figure appeared, blocking her path. Amanda skidded to a stop, stray droplets dancing in the air around her. Jack! She gasped, relief flooding through her. But the shadow stepped closer, flickering in the half-light, and her heart twisted with fear. This wasn't Jack. Going somewhere? The voice hissed, her breath caught in her throat as she faced the unknown danger. Was she truly alone, or had Jack simply abandoned her? In that moment, Amanda realized her fight was only beginning. And in this deadly game, trust was the rarest currency. Where's Jack? She demanded, though her voice trembled. And as the figure chuckled darkly, she understood that the worst was far from over. The figure stepped into the light, hood pulled low, casting shadows over his face. A familiar glint hung in his eyes, sending a chill rippling down Amanda's spine. It was not Jack, but someone she recognized all too well. Lucas, she gasped, her voice barely a whisper. Memories flooded her mind, his charm, the deceit hidden behind his smile. The warmth of their past interactions had been deceiving. There was nothing warm about him now. What a twist of fate, he said, grinning like a predator spotting prey. You thought you could slip away unnoticed? You should be known better. This wasn't a reunion, it was a nightmare. The rain pelted down harder, each drop like a reminder of how trapped she really was. Behind Lucas, the alley loomed, dark and foreboding, echoing the urgency in her mind. Where's Jack? She pressed, every ounce of defiance swelling within her. What have you done to him? Lucas cocked his head, considering her words. You're more worried about him than yourself? That's cute. But don't worry, he's not dead yet. Let him go. Desperation clawed at her throat. She needed to keep him talking, to buy herself precious seconds. He stepped closer, the stench of cigarette smoke mingling with the rain. Why are you so surprised? You're part of a bigger game now. You and Jack, you thought you could outrun it? This is just the beginning. What do you mean? Amanda's mind raced to connect the dots. Jack had been her partner in this, but what could Lucas possibly want from them? Lucas leaned in, his voice a low hiss. They'll find you both, Amanda. They always do. The question is, are you ready to face the consequences? A distant shout drew closer, pulling Amanda's gaze down the alley. She couldn't stay here, she had to escape. Get out of my way! She hissed, her heart pounding wildly. Not so fast. Lucas lunged, but Amanda ducked, a wild surge of adrenaline propelling her forward. She dodged him, arms pumping, propelled by sheer will. She could hear him snarling behind her, footsteps pounding the wet ground. Running won't save you, he yelled, but she focused only on the path ahead, pushing through the pain burning in her legs. Each step pounded a rhythm of urgency. The rain morphed into a heavy curtain, blurring her vision but also masking her escape. Every sound, every echo pulled her closer to losing control. She wouldn't let that happen. Suddenly, off to her right, a door stood slightly ajar, a derelict storefront. Without thinking, she veered toward it. Pushing inside, she stumbled into darkness. The smell of old carpet and dust filled her nostrils as she held her breath. The room was eerily silent, shadows closing in around her like a cocoon. She pressed her back against the door, clenching her teeth as she tenuously listened for footsteps. They weren't far behind. She grabbed an old metal pipe from the ground, doubt mingling with resolve as she steadied her breathing. If anyone came through that door, she'd be ready. But where was Jack? She needed him now more than ever. The metal pipe felt reassuring in her hands, but desperation clawed at her stomach. What if he was caught? What if he hadn't escaped? Footsteps echoed in the distance, a taunting reminder of the imminent danger. Lights flickered overhead, casting ghostly shadows across the walls, deepening her fear. She squeezed her eyes shut, desperately trying to picture Jack's face, his unwavering strength, his fierce resolve. But what if he was out there alone, battling his own demons? She heard the door creak, fear slashed through her like a knife. Where are you, Amanda? Lucas's voice rang out, dripping with smug satisfaction. Her grip tightened, pulse quickening. She was done running. With a deep breath, she prepared to confront him. The darkness wouldn't claim her without a fight. But just before she could react, a new sound filled the air. A rapid series of knocks echoed through the building, a cacophony of chaos as the door burst open. Get down! A voice roared, and Amanda's heart froze. Who was it now? Allies or enemies? As shadows danced around her, she realized the game was shifting once again. Time hung heavy in the air, and she couldn't shake the feeling that this chapter was far from over. Who would emerge from the darkness, and who would be left behind? In that moment, Amanda understood trust was no longer her burden. Survival was all that mattered now. As the door flung open wider, a dark figure eclipsed her view, and the thunder outside matched the pounding in her heart. What had she gotten herself into? The answers loomed just out of reach. The figure stepped into the dim light, and Amanda's instincts screamed at her to retreat further into the shadows. It was a tall man, broad shoulders silhouetted against the doorway. The booming voice that had commanded her to get down belonged to none other than Mark, a fellow investigator known for his intimidating presence and no-nonsense attitude. Amanda! He exclaimed, rushing toward her. Are you all right? Her heart raced. Mark! Where's Jack? Panic laced her words as she quickly assessed the situation. Had Mark come to help? Or had he been sent by Lucas? No time for that. He pulled her into the room, shutting the door with a heavy thud. We need to hide. Lucas is right behind me. Lucas? she barely breathed. The name hung in the air like a dark cloud, suffocating and oppressive. "What are you doing here?" "Looking for you too," he replied tersely. "He has got a team out there, and they've got Jack. We need to regroup, figure out our next move." Just as Mark spoke, a loud crash echoed from the entrance of the storefront. Lucas had kicked the door open, catching the moment Amanda's heart sank to the floor. "You can't hide from the inevitable." Lucas's voice cut through the air like a knife, sending chills down Amanda's spine. She backed away instinctively, but Mark stood firm, bracing himself to confront the threat. "You're outnumbered," Mark growled, eyeing the hallway behind Lucas where shadows flanked him like wolves waiting for the signal to strike. Amanda felt her heart in her throat, every beat echoing the growing uncertainty of their fate. "Am I?" Lucas smirked, stepping into the room. "I'd say you're the ones with the numbers problem." At his signal, two more figures emerged from the darkness, faces obscured by hoods. Amanda's breath quickened as fear unleashed a flood of adrenaline. "Run!" Mark shouted, grabbing Amanda's arm and pulling her toward the back of the room. They barreled down a narrow corridor, the stench of mildew and decay trailing them as they collided with the walls. Behind them, Lucas's laughter was an unsettling melody. "You think you can escape? You're only prolonging the inevitable. I'll find you." The urgency settled into a numbness drifting in Amanda's gut. She could hear the thudding of her heart drowned out by the sound of their footsteps, echoing in the narrow confines. "What now?" she gasped, her lungs burning as they skidded around a corner. "Through here." Mark yanked open a door leading into another room. The space was cluttered with boxes, and the low ceiling made it feel even smaller. He shut the door behind them, breathing hard as he leaned against it. In the darkness, Amanda's mind raced. Jack. Jack was out there, possibly in danger, and here they were hiding like cowards. Her resolve hardened. "We can't just sit here. We have to help him." "There's nothing we can do right now," Mark said, his eyes darting around. "I can't risk both of you getting captured. We need to wait for the right moment." The tension hung between them as thunder rumbled outside, the storm mirroring the chaos in Amanda's heart. She shook her head in defiance. "If we wait, it'll be too late. What if they have him locked away? We have to do something now." Mark visibly wrestled with her words, hands pressed against the doorframe. "What do you propose? We charge out there and get hunted down like prey?" A noise interrupted them, a soft scuffing sound outside the door. Amanda's breath hitched, and she instinctively reached for the metal pipe still clutched in her hand. The moment felt heavy, as if time itself was holding its breath with them. Then, unmistakably, Lucas's voice filtered through the door. "I can smell fear." "I know you're in there, Amanda." Amanda's chest tightened. They were trapped, with nowhere to go. But in that suffocating darkness, an idea sparked within her. "Mark," she whispered urgently, "if we don't have an exit, let us make one." Before she could even think through the madness of her words, she braced herself, glancing at the others gathering outside, preparing their search. This wasn't just about survival anymore. It was about saving Jack. With a heart pounding furiously, Amanda turned to Mark. "Get ready." What had begun as a desperate attempt to hide was now morphing into a reckless plan to fight back. But in her heart, she felt the weight of every risk. What if they failed? And as the door rattled beneath the pressure of Lucas's strong hands, Amanda could only wonder, would this be their final stand or the beginning of a fierce resistance? It was time to discover just how far she was willing to go. The door shuddered violently, reverberating against the walls as Lucas pressed with all his might. Amanda felt her pulse quicken, each thud resonating in her chest. An explosion of adrenaline surged, pushing her forward, igniting the fire of her determination. "Mark!" she hissed, urgency lacing her voice. "We have to break that wall. It's our only chance." Mark hesitated, his gaze flicking between her and the door, where Lucas's mocking laughter danced in the air. "You're serious? If we can get through there," she pointed toward a stack of crates piled precariously in the corner, "maybe we can get to the back alley." It could lead us to Jack. He nodded, the fire in her words igniting a spark of resolve in him. Okay, let us do it. They rushed to the crates, the frantic whispers and muffled breaths filling the dark space. Mark began pushing them aside, revealing a stained sheet of metal, possibly a forgotten part of the building's facade. It looked flimsy, but it was their only option. The door creaked again, the sound of Lucas's voice louder now, filled with dark delight. You can run, but you can't hide forever. I'll enjoy this. With a desperate heave, Amanda shoved against the metal, her muscles screaming in protest as she fought against the weight of despair that threatened to pull her under. The metal groaned in protest but held firm. She pressed harder, her determination fueling each push. What if it's not enough? Mark's voice cracked through the tension, uncertainty creeping in. Then we make it enough. Her response burst forth, the strength of her convictions surprising even her. They redoubled their efforts, beads of sweat forming as they grated against the noise of Lucas's team searching. Each sound echoed like a countdown in her mind. They had to move fast. She felt time slipping through her fingers like sand. Suddenly, the door shuddered violently once more, splinters flying as Lucas broke through the final barricade, his face twisted with glee and menace. Found you! Now! Amanda shouted, and with a forceful shove, she and Mark heaved the metal sheet out. The clang echoed, reverberating in the cramped space as it clattered to the ground, revealing the murky alleyway beyond. Without a second thought, Mark pushed Amanda through the opening. She stumbled into the grime-streaked exterior, the scent of rain-soaked asphalt filling her nostrils. He followed closely behind, but they barely had a moment to breathe before they heard the door crash open behind them. Amanda! Mark! Get back here! Lucas's voice, now a furious growl, chased them into the cool night air. The urgency of the moment sent Amanda's heart racing as the adrenaline kicked in, and they sprinted down the alley, staying barrel low. Footsteps thundered behind them, the sounds of pursuit driving them forward. They didn't dare look back, fear propelling them through the damp corridor between buildings, hearts pounding as if matching the rhythm of their frantic sprint. What now? Mark gasped, glancing back only briefly. Left. Amanda shouted, keeping her eyes ahead, willing her muscles to move even faster. They turned sharply, ducking into a narrow street lined with trash bins that promised sanctuary or a trap. But there was no time to think. They could hear the others closing in, and she refused to let Jack become a casualty of this moment. They skidded to a stop, the tension thick as they leaned against the wall to catch their breath. Okay, Mark breathed. We need a plan. But Amanda could hardly think. A storm was brewing, both outside and within, as she scanned the unfamiliar street filled with shadows and echoes. Jack's face loomed in her mind, the urgency sharpened, churning with anxiety. We need to find him, she whispered, her voice laced with desperation. But before Mark could reply, a flicker of light caught her eye. The unmistakable glow of headlights cut through the darkness, followed by the low rumble of an engine approaching. A sinking feeling gripped her stomach. There's no exit on this street, Mark, we're running out of time. The car screeched to a halt, and she caught a glimpse of a figure stepping out. Get ready, she breathed again, heart racing as she braced for whatever would come next. Who is it? Mark whispered, but it was too late. They were poised on the brink of discovery, one wrong move away from being severely trapped. She couldn't let Lucas win. But would this stranger be an ally, or another enemy? A chill raced down Amanda's spine as she squinted into the powerful glare of the headlights, her heart pounding like a war drum. The figure approaching from the car remained obscured, a silhouette against the bright beams that felt both threatening and promising. She could see a long coat flapping in the wind, a scarf wrapped tightly around the neck, cloaking any clues about their intentions. Stay low, she whispered to Mark, her voice quivering. They pressed their backs further against the wall, hearts hammering in unison as the figure stepped into the dim lamplight. The light glinted off a familiar face. Ben? Amanda gasped, recognition hitting her like a brick. The tall, rugged figure of Ben Collins, their old friend and tech wizard, stood beneath the flickering street lamp. She was flooded with relief but tempered by caution. "What are you doing here?" Mark asked, a blend of surprise and skepticism in his tone. "Looking for you too," Ben said, his voice steady despite the tense situation. "I saw the commotion. I'm here to help." Before they could respond, a series of pounding footsteps echoed in the alley, drowning out the quiet desperation of their breaths. "Hurry!" Ben urged, glancing towards the advancing noise. "We don't have much time." Amanda hesitated for only a moment, glancing back toward the direction they had come. She could almost see Lucas's snarling face among the shadows, driving his team forward, relentless and hungry. "Get in!" Ben gestured, flipping the back door of his car open. Without a second thought, Amanda leaped in, Mark following closely behind. The stench of leather mixed with a hint of gasoline greeted them inside. Ben slid into the driver's seat, the engine humming to life as he slammed the door shut. "Go, go, go!" Amanda yelled, urgency pushing her words into the charged atmosphere. Ben's foot pressed harder against the gas, and they lurched forward. The alley walls blurred past. The car cut through the darkness like a knife, but Amanda's heart felt heavy. Were they really safe now? "What's the plan?" Mark asked, trying to catch his breath. "I'm getting you to a safe house," Ben assured, turning sharply onto another street. "But we need to know everything. What did Lucas want with you?" Amanda's mind raced. Did she tell him everything? About Jack? About the hidden motives lurking in the shadows? "He wanted revenge," Amanda stammered, still catching up with thoughts and events spiraling out of control. "He believes we know where Jack is." "Do you?" Ben shot back, concern etching onto his features. Before Amanda could answer, there was a sharp crack. A gunshot rang out, echoing through the still night. The rear window shattered, raining glass into the cabin and sending her into a panic. "Duck!" Ben shouted instinctively, swerving the car as bullets thudded against the metal, ricocheting violently around them. "Go faster!" Amanda screamed, fear clawing at her chest, the taste of impending doom thick on her tongue. Ben pushed the accelerator to the limit, weaving through the streets as the chaos elevated around them. "Hold on tight!" he yelled, but Amanda was already bracing herself, dread creeping into her bones. "Where's Jack?" she cried out again, desperation rising within her. Ben glanced at her, his jaw tense. "I can't protect you two if I don't know the whole story. We don't have time." Another shot rang out, and Ben swerved again, narrowly missing a parked car. Amanda clenched her fists in panic, looking squarely into Ben's eyes. "He's in danger. We need to save him before it's too late." The car rounded a corner, and the target in sight ignited a flurry of confusion. Where to go? What route would lead them to Jack in safety? "Just drive!" Mark shouted forcefully, a surge of awareness crashing over him, pushing Amanda's emotional storm alongside the swirling chaos. "Or we all end up like Jack." But what awaited them at the end of this frantic race? Would they reach him in time, or were they walking straight into a trap set by Lucas? As the car spun into an intersection, headlights illuminating a larger street, the gravity of their situation weighed heavy. Suddenly, a dark SUV revved out of the shadows, cutting them off in a brutal display of aggression. "Stay low!" Ben shouted again, but Amanda's heart sank. They weren't out of danger yet. In fact, they had just stepped deeper into the jaws of the monster. What awaited them next? Would they stand and fight or run into the unknown once again? The screech of tires echoed through the shrinking space as Ben gripped the wheel, his knuckles turning white. The SUV loomed closer, its engine growling like a predator stalking its prey. "Ben, watch it!" Mark shouted, adrenaline pumping through his veins, the scent of fear thick and heavy in the cramped car. "Hang on!" Ben replied, accelerating hard as the dark vehicle blocked their escape route. He swerved left, the tires screeching in protest as they raced down the narrow street. Behind them, the SUV was relentless, its headlights blazing, illuminating the night like an ominous spotlight. The roar of gunfire erupted once more, thudding against the back of the car. Each crack sent jolts of panic through Amanda, forcing her breath to catch in her throat. "Are they shooting at us?" she barely managed to utter, her voice quivering. We're not sticking around to find out. Ben barked, pressing the gas even harder. The car shot forward, navigating the uneven pavement as they skirted past a series of alleyways. Where do we go? Mark yelled, glancing frantically at Amanda, who felt trapped in her own mind, visions of Jack flooding her thoughts. We need to get to the warehouse, Amanda shouted back. She couldn't help but think of the old place, a vault of memories, and maybe, just maybe, a link to Jack's whereabouts. Warehouse? Ben echoed incredulously as the SUV edged closer. It's south, the only place masked by all the shadows. I'll explain later, just trust me. Ben nodded, turning sharply off the road and plunging deeper into the maze of back streets. The SUV followed relentlessly, a predator refusing to lose its prey. Bullets whizzed past, cracking against the metal frame of the car as shards of glass flew from the rearview mirror. Let us hope they don't drive too close, Ben grunted, his jaw set with determination. Then, with a frightening speed, Ben glanced into the rearview mirror. They're gaining on us. Amanda's stomach dropped. Faster! He surged forward, tires gripping the slick asphalt. The lights of the city shimmered ahead, but all of that felt like a blurry mirage. Time was dissolving into chaos, moments stretching as each bullet whistled past them. Suddenly, Ben swerved violently to avoid an oncoming car. Their vehicle skidded, nearly tipping onto its side before he regained control. We're almost there, Amanda cried, her heart racing. Lights flashed in her eyes, mixed with panic and a glimmer of hope. But they were still trapped. The SUV had made a detour, veering to block their path ahead. Simon! We can't stop. Duck! Ben shouted, a voice filled with urgency as he prepared to crash through the barricade. As the SUV pulled to the front of their vehicle, Amanda's breath hitched. A steady stream of gunfire erupted. Ben slammed on the brakes, making them jerk forward in their seats. Glass shattered around them like a million tiny stars. Get down! Amanda yelled, curling into a ball, clutching Mark, whose eyes were wide with terror. What's the plan? Mark cried, panic rocketing through him. Find cover! Ben shouted, feeling time tug at him, as they were now sandwiched between the opposing vehicle and hopeless chaos. With a roar of defiance, Ben flung open his car door, his movements powerful yet desperate. Follow me! He commanded, stepping out into the open, an act of sheer bravery amid madness. Amanda glanced into Mark's eyes, fear and determination reflected back. We have to follow him. As they squirmed out of the car, the cool night air stung Amanda's cheeks. They ducked low, peering into the darkness, all while the two opposing forces whirled in a deadly dance. Then it hit her like a ton of bricks. What if they know about the warehouse already? What if it's a setup? No time for what-ifs! Ben yelled, sprinting toward a nearby stack of crates. But doubt wormed its way into her heart. As the situation spiraled further into chaos, Amanda felt something cold settle in her chest. What if they were falling right into Lucas's trap, thinly veiled in the guise of salvation? The night was dark, but Amanda could feel the walls closing in around them, the weight of the moment pressing down. Do you trust me? She whispered to Mark, who hesitated for a heartbeat but then nodded grimly. Their next move could decide everything. Would they be free or make the biggest mistake of their lives? As they crouched behind the crates, Amanda steeled herself. In that moment, clarity struck. Once and for all, she needed to confront the truth about Jack. But before she could draw another breath, a shadow flickered near the edge of the alley, and Amanda froze. Something was coming, and it was going to change everything. What would they do now, with all their secrets hanging in the balance? The echoes of gunfire and chaos shuffled beneath the heavy rains, but Amanda felt something shift in her core. This wasn't just about Jack or escaping. This was her moment to wrestle control from the jaws of fear. She turned to Mark, eyes steady with renewed resolve. I won't let them take him, she vowed. As the distant sound of footsteps grew closer, Mark nodded, the fire igniting in his eyes. Let us move before it's too late. Crouching low, they navigated through the stacks of crates, rain lashing against the rough fabric of their clothes. Each corner felt charged with urgency. It was like the stillness before the plunge into a storm. They darted through the labyrinth of shadows, adrenaline fueling their move like a current. Finally, they reached a secluded back alley where the clamor tapered off. "This way," Ben beckoned them, leading them toward a dilapidated entrance shrouded in darkness, the entrance to the abandoned warehouse Amanda had mentioned. It loomed ahead, familiar but eerie, wrapped in a shroud of memory and pending tension. "Once we're in, we need to regroup and decide on our next step," Ben whispered, glancing back, ensuring no one followed. "Jack S. in there," Amanda pressed, unwilling to lose sight of him. "Trust me," Ben replied, urgency glazing his voice. "We'll find him." They slipped through the gaping doorway, and the musty air swirled around them, heavy with dust and ghostly memories. The darkness cocooned them, but each step they took felt resonant with purpose. "I can't shake the feeling that this is a trap," Amanda murmured, the weight of uncertainty pooling in her stomach. "Kind of have to think that way now, huh?" Mark replied, tension coiling in his shoulders. "But we can't waste any more time." As they crept deeper into the skeleton of the warehouse, distant sounds filtered through the walls, voices, cold and devious, accompanied by an occasional laugh that sent shivers cascading through Amanda. They were close, she could feel it. "Get against the wall," Ben hissed suddenly, the urgency escalating. They pressed back, hearts racing faster than the rain pounding the roof above. "Do you hear that?" Mark whispered, and Amanda strained to listen, focusing through the shadows. "Yeah. It's Jack," she replied, recognizing the frantic timbre of his voice mixed with urgent dialogues around him. "We can't just leave him there." As they silently plotted their next move, the heavy footsteps crowded closer. Amanda could feel the clenching grip of fear tighten around her heart. They needed to act, and quickly. But just as she was about to suggest a plan, the sound of scuffling drew their attention. "Look!" Ben pointed toward a narrow gap in the wall, where shadows danced just beyond their reach. "That way." And without a moment's hesitation, they rushed to the opening, hearts pounding as they slipped through, feeling the disheveled dust attack their senses. What awaited them on the other side? Within moments, they stumbled into a faded room buzzing with muffled voices. There, contained within crude metal pipes, they spotted Jack. Relief swept over Amanda, mixed with horror at the restraints that bound him. "Jack!" she gasped, but the urgency eclipsed the joy. She rushed toward him, a surge of determination lighting her up. "Get him out of here!" Ben called, glancing back down the corridor. "We've got company." "Now!" Amanda yanked at the binds around Jack's wrists relentlessly. "Hold on, I'm getting you out." "Mandy, it's a trap," Jack warned, his eyes wide with urgency. "You have to get out, everything here is rigged." But the sound of footsteps echoed once again, men racing toward the room, fueled by sinister intentions. "I'm not leaving you behind!" Amanda cried, her voice steady and fierce. The tension grew as shouts erupted down the hall, urgency making each second feel like an eternity. "Get behind me!" Mark yelled, positioning himself protectively between Amanda and the doorway. "No! Stand aside!" Jack shouted, struggling against the restraints. "You need to run!" "No!" Amanda insisted, pulling the bindings harder. "Not without you!" Suddenly, the door burst open, revealing a shadowy figure, Lucas, smirking, flanked by two burly men. Anxiety wrapped its fingers around Amanda, but the fire of resolve ignited within her. "Look who decided to show up," Lucas taunted, his smile stretching wide. "Did you really think you could escape this?" "We're taking Jack," Mark spat defiantly, positioning himself as a shield. "Step aside," Lucas commanded, drawing a gun with chilling confidence. "Or I'll make you wish you hadn't come here." Amanda stepped forward, a surge of courage swelling in her chest. "If you think you'll hurt him, you'll have to go through me first." Lucas's laughter echoed like a knife cutting through the tension. "You really believe that threat matters?" In that moment, everything froze. The air felt thick, anticipation buzzing against the remnants of rain still dripping around them. Then light erupted, Mark lunged at Lucas just as he pulled the trigger, the shot ringing out a sound Amanda would never forget. The chaos churned as Ben threw himself toward Jack, frantically working to free him while Amanda remained frozen, watching Mark tackle Lucas to the ground. "Get him out! Now!" Ben shouted, urgency coursing through his words. Without thinking, Amanda regained her bearings, rushing toward Jack, her fingers working faster than her heart could pound. Fear clawed at her throat, but with each frantic moment, she could feel Mark's fight raging behind her, the embodiment of hope pushing her closer. Finally, the bind snapped away, and Jack was free. "Let us go!" he yelled, a fierce determination burning in his eyes, the threat of Lucas close behind. But as they turned to escape, chaos erupted. Shadows flooded the doorway, an avalanche of urgency and desperation. "No! We can't let them!" Lucas roared, but his voice was drowned by the chaos around them. "Run!" Jack shouted, ripping Amanda back into action. As they stumbled out of the room, Amanda felt the weight of the world on their shoulders. Each step was heavy with purpose. She glanced back once, catching the chaotic scene as the fight erupted, seeing Mark wrestling with Lucas's henchmen. "Go!" he shouted, and Amanda felt a burning urge to break free, to take them all back to safety. They fled through the sprawling maze, heartbeats pounding in sync as bullets rang out like a haunting melody behind them. But it wasn't the end. It was only the fire that would push their fates forward. Together, they could rise beyond the night, bound by courage and survival. And just as they burst through the exit, an explosion crackled in the distance, the structure groaning behind them. They didn't stop. The world outside was falling apart, but they didn't look back. Hope surged within, and they knew this battle was only the beginning. As they dashed into the stormy night, still pushing through the chaos of the city, each breath they took was one step closer to freedom. They would find their way, and together they would fight until the very last shadow melted away. The past was heavy, but their future shined a promise waiting to unfold in the light. Now, more than ever, they understood the fire that bound them, a fierce connection, a bond forged under pressure. And as they raced toward an uncertain horizon, they knew the fight was only just beginning. The storm may rage, but they would not be broken. Subscribe immediately to the channel so you don't miss the next exclusive stories. Smash the like button now to feed the algorithm and help us grow. Flood the comments section with your reactions and theories about the ending. Instantly share this video with at least 5 friends who need to see this conclusion. You need to subscribe now. This is the moment to show your support. Don't wait even one more second to share. Only true fans understand the importance of supporting the channel through these actions.